Hello, I'm Cardinal Blase Cupich, the Archbishop of Chicago. It has been good to hear from other faith leaders on their work in preventing and healing child sexual abuse. The Archdiocese of Chicago has been deeply engaged in this work for more than 30 years. I will tell you about our approach, but let me first share a story that has served as a point of reference for me. It's at the core of my convictions and is what motivates me when it comes to protecting children. Years ago, when I was a bishop of a mostly rural small diocese, a successful middle-aged businessman came to see me. His story was heart-wrenching. Starting when he was just 9 years old, he explained, serving regularly at Sunday Mass, that the parish priest would have him stay afterward, ostensibly to help clean up. But this priest had a darker purpose. He would take the young boy into the church basement and sexually abuse him, week after week. And then this priest, a man ordained to serve the people of God, would walk the boy home, hand in hand, and sit down to have dinner on Sunday with the family. One day the boy asked his mother, "What if Father asks me to do something that I don't want to do?" His devout mother, thinking the child was talking about avoiding chores, replied, "Whatever Father asks you to do, you have to do it." And so he did, for 4 agonizing years. Finally, the boy found the courage to tell his father what was going on, and the abuse ended. It was, as you might imagine, a profoundly painful thing to share. After the man finished telling his story, I said, "Just tell me what I can do. What do you want me to do?" He told me that he wanted to confront the priest, to lay this burden at his feet. He had carried it too long. When he did, the priest did not deny it. I also asked if I could go to his home parish and tell the parishioners what had happened. He said, "Yes, and I'll come with you." So after informing the local police and the Vatican, we visited the parish. I explained what their former priests had done and invited other victims to come forward. Then I walked to the church vestibule where photos of former priests hung, and I removed the priest's picture. Soon afterwards, I notified or visited the other places where the priest had served and asked other victims to come forward. It was a moment of great pain, but that survivor's courage forced me to be an adult in a way I had never experienced. That encounter convinced me that there should be no place in the church for leaders who misuse power or expect privilege or protection because of their status. I have carried the memory of that man for nearly 20 years, through another diocese bankrupted by the abuse scandal, and finally to Chicago, where the Archdiocese has had a leading, comprehensive, and sustained role in responding to the clergy abuse scandal. In the late 1980s, abuse survivors began to come forward in greater numbers. Understanding that this phenomenon demanded a new approach, Cardinal Joseph Bernardine convened a lay commission in 1991 to review the archdiocesan procedures for handling accusations of sexual abuse. The following year, the Archdiocese put in place policies and procedures to address allegations and issues related to the sexual abuse of minors. In 1992, Cardinal Bernardine presented and provided copies of these policies and procedures to all the United States Catholic bishops at their annual meeting. The response was decidedly mixed. Imagine if all the bishops at that meeting had taken those documents home and fully implemented them in their dioceses, how much further ahead we would be in preventing abuse and punishing offenders. How many children might have been spared? But Chicago's efforts did not stop at policies. The Archdiocese also dedicated substantial resources designed to put the child in the center of the room figuratively to carry out this ministry, and we do view it as a ministry. This department, the Office for the Protection of Children and Youth, brings together the various ministries within the Archdiocese dedicated to ensuring the safety of children and providing support to survivors. Within it are 4 areas of specialties. First, the Office of Victims Assistance. It provides direct outreach and support to survivors and their families. We believe it was the first office of this kind in the United States. It is not housed in a church or archdiocesan building, but in a large single-family home donated to the diocese. Its atmosphere is designed to avoid painful triggers and to put these individuals and their families at ease. Today, when a survivor comes forward, he or she is first offered the services of this ministry. They are able to access mental health care from our staff or from any licensed professional at the expense of the Archdiocese. This offer is made no matter when the abuse occurred, whether the accused is dead or alive, a diocesan priest, or a member of a religious order. Our staff, which includes a therapist and social workers, lead with a pastoral approach based on believing the survivor's story and acting immediately to help ease their pain. They take all the time needed to listen to and to hear the child within the adult before them. The office also includes an independent office, the Office of Child Abuse Investigations and Review. After the survivor is offered pastoral and professional care, this office notifies the appropriate civil authorities. It reports all possible abuse of a minor, regardless of legal requirements. By the way, we have reported every allegation of child sexual abuse, even anonymous third-party telephone calls alleging abuse, since 2002. And in 2002, we searched our files, gathered and reported every allegation we could find. Some were 70 years old. This office is headed by lay professionals who conduct a compassionate and thorough process for receiving and investigating reports of child abuse against archdiocesan personnel. The director of that office also serves as staff for the Independent Review Board, a lay majority, multidisciplinary group that advises me about an accused cleric's danger to children and fitness for ministry. Their task is not easy, given the often long time between the alleged abuse and survivors' reports. But they can use the services of professional investigators to form their recommendations. Nearly 250 recorded board meetings have been held over these years. Knowing that only prevention would stop this scourge, the Archdiocese also established the Safe Environment Office that oversees prevention of efforts through conducting training for adults and children and developing resources to educate archdiocesan clergy, employees, and volunteers on how to prevent child sexual abuse, how to recognize sex offender behavior, and how to create safe environments for children and youth. Since 2003, 270,000 adults have been trained in 3,800 training sessions. We know that most abuse occurs in the home or at the hands of a family member or a friend. So we believe that preparing kids to confront this sad reality is our responsibility. Archdiocesan parishes and schools are required to provide training to children and youth on how to recognize, respond to, and report grooming or abuse, no matter where or by whom it occurs. Students receive age-appropriate training in each grade annually. It instills in them the knowledge that they have a right to be safe, and if they don't feel safe, they have a right to report. Safe environment office personnel also screen through name-based background checks all clergy, employees, and volunteers. Office personnel also receive and review fingerprint results for school personnel. If they do not pass, they are not employed. We also have priest monitoring program for clergy with substantiated cases of sexual abuse against them. These men have been withdrawn from ministry permanently and are prohibited from presenting themselves as priests. They are required to comply with numerous invasive restrictions to help ensure safety for the community. It is certainly important that we have policies and procedures to organize the way we handle allegations of abuse. They have evolved over the past 3 decades and have stood the test of time. However, they are not a substitute for pastoral care. They help provide a framework for our pastoral care and are based on faith principles of justice, compassion, reverence for the dignity of each person, and recognition that we are all equal siblings of a loving God. By 2002, with the scandal in Boston prominent in the news, the Archdiocese of Chicago's 1992 principles formed the basis of what's now known as the Charter for the Protection of Children and Young People, which was approved by the United States bishops at their 2002 meeting in Dallas. The charter reinforced what the Archdiocese of Chicago had been doing for a decade by requiring all dioceses to heal and promote reconciliation of survivors and their families, no matter whether the abuse was recent or occurred many years in the past. Make prompt and effective response to abuse allegations. Cooperate with civil authorities. Discipline offenders. Create a safe environment for children and young people through training and screening. Provide means of accountability through an annual audit of the implementation of the Charter's requirements. We bishops must address forthrightly the degree to which we have kept the promises we made in 2002 with the adoption of the Charter. The bottom line is the Charter works if we actually implement it. I am confident the Archdiocese of Chicago is complying with those promises. In fact, we go beyond them. We cannot provide pastoral care for our people, particularly survivors and their families, if they do not trust us. I'm resolved that we will deal effectively with the crisis of abuse, take the steps necessary to rebuild trust, and build on the progress we have made to protect children. We would do well to remember that when Cardinal Bernardine, who broke ground in 1992 with the creation of our Victim Assistance Ministry, was accused of misconduct, he submitted himself to the Archdiocesan review process. Moreover, Cardinal Bernardine reached out to his accuser after he had recanted, and he prayed with the dying young man, offering pastoral care and reconciliation. This was a painful time, but his example speaks powerfully to us today. Like Cardinal Bernardine and me, Pope Francis is motivated to take up the work of making major reforms in large part by his meetings with survivors who bravely share their stories and deep pain. By his own admission, he has learned a great deal from those encounters. He has been decisive in removing cardinals and bishops, laicizing some for misconduct and removing bishops for their mishandling of cases. Pope Francis wants all the Church's leaders to not only have a full understanding of the devastating impact clerical sexual abuse has on survivors, but also to accept ownership at a national, regional, diocesan, and parish level for effectively addressing this issue in a way that keeps all children safe. It was nearly 20 years ago when that middle-aged businessman recounted how he was abused by one of my priests. As he spoke to me, I heard the voice of a 9-year-old boy who, though deeply wounded, had the courage to come forward and share his story. I was humbled by his trust and still am today. The voice of the survivor must be the Church's true north as we work to address this global scandal. Yes, ours is a church of many nations and many cultures, a diversity we must respect, but zero tolerance when it comes to harming children and full accountability are universal non-negotiables. These are not values to be held in the abstract or simply codified as a list of procedures to be ticked off as a matter of routine. No, they must be lived values. They must be values that permeate the very air we breathe as a church, so that everyone, from the volunteer, tutor, to the bishop, knows that building a culture of accountability, justice, and healing is essential to what it means to be church, to follow Christ's call. Pope Francis put it powerfully in his address to survivors during his 2015 visit to the United States. This is what he said: "The crimes and sins of the sexual abuse of children must no longer be held in secret. I pledge the zealous vigilance of the Church to protect children and the promise of accountability for all. You survivors of abuse have yourselves become true heralds of hope and ministers of mercy. We humbly owe each of you and your families our gratitude for your immense courage to shine the light of Christ on the evil of the sexual abuse of children." As a church, and especially as bishops, we must keep the promises made by the Holy Father and that we have made. We must never abandon survivors. We must never grow complacent. We must confront the truth and act to bring healing and justice to those who have been robbed of both. The Church stands as a sign of God's surpassing love, a love we Christians find in the person of Jesus. This is a moment to mature in knowing who Jesus is. When we look into the face of the survivor, we look into the very face of Jesus. Our prayer in this moment of sorrow and agony must be that the Lord deepen the Church's thirst for justice and healing, that we hold firm to our resolve to be the hands of God's mercy, reflecting with every step we take God's own love for his children. That is my prayer, confident and filled with hope that these two are gifts God has always wanted to give to his children. Thank you.